Alright, I'm here in my AFI shirt that I've had since I was a kid to tell you about the most depressing book, but also the best book in the Heroes of Olympus series. If you haven't guessed, that's House of Hades. This was so rough. It took me 1 to 2 days each to read the last 3 books in the series. It took me 2 weeks to read this guy. And it's not because I didn't like it. It was just so much. It was so much painful stuff to go through, ripping your heart out over and over again. And not even just for the 2 characters that have it especially bad that you see on the front cover there. Everybody was having a rough time in this book. The ending was the most stressful thing ever. Wow. I don't even know how to describe it overall as a book. It was rough. I'll just go right into spoilers because, we need to talk about this stuff. I will say this is officially my favorite book in the entire series. There's so much character development, and we got a lot of Leo, but we also got a lot of Percy and Annabeth. It was just the best of both worlds. Things were moving. Things were moving in this book way faster, even than Mark of Athena. I think the hardest part of it was that it was so thick. I think it was like 600 pages or so. It was worth it because of all that happened, but it was just kind of daunting, which is part of why it took me so long, but it also took me so long just because I was depressed. There are so many good scenes and such good character development. Everybody is learning so much about themselves in this book just through going through the hardest trials. And spoiler alert for the rest of this, but our 2 main characters are literally dead, but not. And it's the most frustrating thing throughout the entire book is that they're in Tartarus and they're like withering away, but they're still trying so hard to get out. And if they didn't have the kind of personalities that they would have where they just triumph through everything, and if they didn't have each other, they talk about that a lot, how if Percy and Annabeth didn't have each other, I don't know if they would have made it out. It was so hard to see them going through all that. And there is also a little less Leo in this book than in Mark of Athena, but we do get a lot from him, if that makes sense. I have a newfound love for Nico D'Angelo because of everything he goes through and also everything we learn about him in this book. I feel so bad because I hated him in the first series. I thought he was just this annoying brat kid that was just had all these anger issues from losing his sister and everything, which is fair. The fact that he doesn't have parents or a sister, it's fair for him to act the way he acted, but it just drove me crazy because it always seemed to get in the way for Percy. But then towards the end of that series, you start to see him come around. And then in this series, obviously he's part of the team helping everybody. And in this book, it's just a whole new side of him that you discover. Other than, the thing that he comes out with, talking to the, Cupid god, and he forces him to admit that he was basically in love with Percy and not Annabeth. That was heart-wrenching. But also just all the different types of character development that he went through in this book just kind of opened my eyes to how much depth his character has that I had just kind of ignored until this point, I guess. But I am now totally in love with him. If it weren't for Leo, he'd be my favorite character. And I love how much he goes through to try to make sure that everybody gets out safe. Just like in Mark of Athena, there's tons more places that we see in this book and tons more names that we meet that go above and beyond what the first series, the original Percy Jackson series, goes over. It's way more, I feel like, minor gods and different types of monsters and just like even heroes and stuff that I didn't really expect to meet. And it was really cool to meet them all. Some of them had some really weird names, and I'm pretty sure that I am mispronouncing all of them. I was actually so excited when Leo ended up on Ogygia. Is that how you say it? And he meets Calypso. It was supposed to be like a terrifying, sad scene that he's stuck on that island, but I was psyched. I feel like from the very beginning, I was like, no, these 2 people need to be together. And it was the best to watch them interact. It was so funny. Leo is just so funny by himself, but he and Calypso, it was hysterical. Lots of comic relief for the book, thank goodness, because, it was a depressing kind of story. But the characters all seem to grow into themselves in this book. They had some character development in the first 3 books, but I feel like they're becoming more mature with everything that they're learning and going through in this book, and just kind of growing into their characters more. Especially Frank, just physically he's growing into himself, which is really cool. But beyond that, you know, mentally and emotionally, everybody is growing in this book, and it's so much going on. I was so sad when Leo did leave Calypso, but by the end of the book, it was so important that they were all together, because every single one of them were using their powers in a new and stronger way than they ever had. And working together, it just became this amazing, powerful team. They all had to make sure they did everything perfectly to get Percy and Annabeth out of Tartarus through the doors of death. And it was so stressful. The whole last 200 pages, all of it was stressful, but the last 100 pages probably was the roughest part. It was beautiful to see them all work together, and it was absolutely amazing when they finally got them out. Escaping through the doors of death seemed like an impossible feat from the beginning. I just did not understand how they could do it. Of course, that's how I felt even in the original Percy Jackson series about everything they did. I would think to myself, this is impossible, which is what they want you to think. And then somehow they'd pull through. And once again, they did that, and it was great and beautiful, and I don't really know what they could pack into the last book that would be better than this book. This is the issue I had with the Percy Jackson series, was that the last book just didn't pack the same character development and story development and different types of adventures that all the previous books had packed into them. My guess is that's how this is gonna go, but I'm gonna remain optimistic. I want to end with my ships, because everybody should be with somebody by the end of the last book, and I'll be mad if they aren't. Percy and Annabeth, obviously. Leo and Calypso. You gotta do this for me, please. Piper and Frank, I think, should be together. Hazel is such a rich character on her own, though. I feel like she's, of all of them, she would be the strongest to just be fine being by herself. But maybe I'm wrong. That's all I have to say about this book. I'm going to finish the 5th one and let you know how it goes. Super excited to record that video. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend, and I will see you next week. Bye!